So yeah, Stasis powers look awesome. Let's talk about them. So today, Bungie dropped the Stasis trailer and also some B-roll kind of in their press kit as well about the new subclasses for Beyond Light. So I'm going to go through each character, break down about as much as I can, but one thing before I actually get into the video that we got today, on the Bungie.net website, they updated the Beyond Light tab, and we basically can see with the image that we actually have specific dates when we get to hear more about these classes than we already get to see here. So I'm going to show you what I can know, kind of give you a preview of what's coming, and then it seems like we're going to get a deep dive. Maybe it's skill trees, maybe it's like specifically like calling out what the grenades, the melees, what the supers actually do in a bit more detail. We'll just have to see. But the Warlock is going to be on September 1st, so you guys can know when to expect future videos from me. So if you haven't subbed to the channel yet, make sure you hit that sub button and the alert bell. Videos will be coming on those days for sure. Titan, September 3rd, and then Hunter, September 8th. Now, there's a gap between the Titan and the Hunter. Maybe that's like TWAB, weekend, who knows, trying to space some of this stuff out. But videos will be coming on each one of those characters once they give us more information. But we're going to start with the Warlock and go in chronological order. So here we go. All right, Guardians. So for each class, what I want to do is play a little kind of montage clip of all the actual powers for each character in action, and then go through and talk about like frames and kind of explain what I think is happening on each one. So we are going to start with the Warlock, and the name here is the Shadebinder. It seems to be the Stasis subclass name, and the text underneath is Fracture with Frost. Now, I'm going to bring up an image for you guys just so you guys can see it, but we have three different things that seem to be what these powers are all capable of. You have a stasis field, so that seems to be like slowing down, the ability to freeze enemies, basically lock them in place in, immobilizing them, and then shattering them, basically as stasis enemies either get killed or get busted apart, those stasis crystals seem to shatter, damage nearby enemies, possibly freeze others as well. So the Warlock has some pretty cool stuff. Let's see it in action. All right, the first thing I want to mention here is the staff. This awesome looking stasis frozen staff with giant spikes on the end. It looks really, really cool. Fits with the Warlock, of course. I picture a wizard. If this was going to be in Lord of the Rings, I picture Gandalf the Blue, since all this stuff does seem to have a bit of a blue tint to it. And the staff is used as kind of the main source. It comes out when the super is actually cast. You guys can see it holding it up in the air, basically like channeling the power of stasis into this staff. And it seems fairly cool. Now, going forward in a couple of screenshots, what we're going to notice is the Warlock itself is capable of firing projectiles out of the staff. At least that's what it looks like. Seems to be like 3 or 4 projectiles that fire towards these goblins, and then upon impact, they seem to just freeze them, shut them down, not moving. They're basically locked in place. Now, it looks really cool when they're locked in place because they are frozen, completely static, not moving, seem to have the stasis crystals on them. Pretty cool in setup. Now, talking to one of my buddies, Lord Cognito, he was actually asking me, do you think things in stasis are already dead? Or do you think they are just like frozen? Now, of course, we'll figure this stuff out later. If one of us is wrong, we'll see. But I think things are initially frozen, and then as they are killed in some way, shape, fashion, or form, whether it seems to be sliding through them, which I'll show you guys on the Titan, whether it's just shooting them, which you guys can see on the Warlock when they actually like shoot the frozen Hunter, they just shatter apart. And when they shatter at that point, I'm pretty sure they're dead. Kind of like Terminator 2 when the guy is frozen by liquid nitrogen and shatters. Normally, you're probably not supposed to melt back together, but, these guys are not going to get that option. Europe is pretty damn cold. So the projectiles seem to fire out. It seems like a good blast radius as well, because it's not just like single shots. Seems everything in the area definitely gets frozen, so there's no like leftovers. Now, the second piece of the powers seems to be, picture a Nova Warp explosion, like, coming from the Warlock itself, but it's like a stasis explosion that starts around the Warlock. And that is kind of the way it seems like, use the projectiles to freeze, and then the explosion shatters everything just in the radius. So freeze them, run on up, stand in the middle, bam, and just shatter everything. And if you could, like, throw this super on a control point in PvP, just like they're doing with the Vex right here. Go stand in the middle of them. They can't move. Bam! Whole team's dead. You're going to get a lot of multi-kills from stasis powers, I've got a feeling. Should be very cool to watch. So that seems to be the main pieces of the super. The projectiles you shoot out, at least from what we can see with the staff, and then the kind of Nova Warp style explosion of stasis energy emanating from the Warlock itself. Now, we did get to see a couple other things as well for the Warlock. We got to see the Rift of the Warlock seemingly just like put the Rift down and freeze the enemies at the Warlock's feet. Now, that seems... I don't know if it's an exotic doing that. I don't know if it's a special stasis power. Either way, a freezing Rift, especially if it's just an ability based in the subclass, that's going to be pretty cool because, especially if it lasts for the normal amount of a Rift, which is about 15 seconds, that's got potential to do a whole lot of crowd control, keeping you safe, and potentially others as well around you. So a freezing Rift, especially if it's just the normal one, has a lot of potential. Now, the final thing we see is the grenade that is thrown in PvP at this hunter. And what happens is, I think it's a grenade or it's a super. I can't really tell. But there's a grenade at one point. There's a super at one point. Either way, hunter's totally frozen. And you can see this shot of the Warlock aiming a sniper rifle. And when that shot happens, the hunter just explodes. So it's like you have to sit there completely frozen, can't do anything, immobilized, and then you just get to watch your, enemy shoot you, and you can't do anything about it. And I don't know if if the freezing will take away your shield, if you got to have your shield down to be frozen. Not entirely sure how that works, but it does seem like, there are ways for you to slow down enemies for sure and kind of lock them up. So Rift, a lot of potential there for the Warlock. The staff, the projectile, and then the Nova Warp style explosion seems very cool. Whatever else is going on, be it a grenade, a melee, maybe it's like a frostbolt instead of a firebolt type melee, like a frostbolt melee that you shoot out and then it freezes or, puts stasis on the enemy, and then you have to finish them off with one more shot. But if you can just lock an enemy in place, even if with if you shoot a little bolt of frost energy or stasis energy out of your hand, and if you hit them and they're just stuck, oh man, dude, so many easy kills coming with this one. It's going to be interesting. So that is the Warlock. Staff, projectiles, Nova explosion, amazing possible Rift. Seems very, very cool. Next, the Titan. Now, for the Titan, the subclass, or maybe this is just what they're going to call this thing, is Behemoth. Apparently, Titans are big boys. They were embracing it. It's totally fine. It says crash like an avalanche. Now, just even in this picture alone, you guys can see that the right fist of the Titan looks like he punched straight into an ice block and then pulled out whatever was kind of stuck to his hand. And it's this ice block right. It looks awesome, is all I got to say. And it looks really, really cool. Now, from the footage, we'll get to see a little bit of the super, one of the grenades in action. So let's take a look. All right, so from the Titan footage, we can see that Titan's definitely going to have some fun, a lot of potential. And this is where I'm wondering if the classes themselves are going to have unique melee abilities and supers, but I'm wondering if they're kind of copies of the grenades on each character, because we've seen the Hunter and both the Titan throw the ice or the stasis wall, and then I've also seen both the Warlock, it looks like, and the Hunter throw the stasis bubble, kind of slowing bubble is what my understanding of kind of what that is. So I'm guessing the grenades might be shared, but everything else seems to be unique, which, grenades are pretty cool anyway. It's totally fine. So first for the Titan, we've got the super. Now the super seems to have two pieces to it. One, it seems to be either a slam if you cast it in the air, kind of like the arc super, or if you're in the air when you cast it, you're going to like slam down. Or if you cast it while on the ground, you might have an alternative to when the slam effect actually takes place. But when the slam happens, it sends this like directional cone in front of you, I don't know, 30 or 40 degrees of stasis, just this like stasis shockwave that emits from the ground, shooting these stasis projectiles up, freezing things in its path. If it's weak enough, it might be killing them. Able to do quite a bit. So, and anytime you slam, it seems to send that shockwave down. We saw that in the time when you actually saw a little bit of the gameplay. It slams down and sends it out. And he did it a couple times, which was really cool. Now, the other piece is you're walking around kind of like a arc subclass as well. It seems like some of these may be kind of transitions that way, where the punching of like the stasis hand is either working on freezing or shattering or a combination of both to any enemies that are around. So you're able to kind of use it as a roaming super to continue to freeze and punch and shatter and freeze and punch and shatter. But if you do get the slam in the air, you get that like kind of directional wave of stasis energy that emits out from you where you land, but it travels forward. So you got to kind of make sure you aim it correctly. Overall, Titan Behemoth feels a little bit to me kind of like the Arc subclass, not the Thunder Crash, the one where you fly. Does seem to have a little bit of travel time if you picture the one shot where they're flying over the top. But it does, I will be curious to see how this one plays, if it feels different enough from the Arc subclass. For the Titan, I like them to feel unique. I'm just hoping it actually does. Now, one thing I will say on the Titan footage, we actually also get to see the Warlock, the wall, the stasis wall in use in a couple different places. We see it in PvP, where it actually creates kind of a vertical wall. I cannot remember what map that is. I'm sure you guys will know in the comments. Now, we can see it also horizontally when we're facing Fallen. I can't tell how much damage the thing is going to take. Potentially not that much. It's going to be potentially a short-term barrier, something you can stand on, which is cool, which we got to see in that little clip of what looks like Fallen crazy footage. But also, you get a chance to give yourself cover that you can potentially get over, give yourself cover if you need to, like, need that second of savior for healing or catch a breath or whatever it is. The wall seems really, really cool just for the potential of the fact that it's cover that you can like put wherever you kind of want it. And hopefully it's smart. I can't tell you how many times I've thrown like the void wall grenade and I wish I could turn the direction it goes. I'm not sure this one's going to be much better, but at least it's cover and I'm not trying to do damage. So it's going to serve its purpose a little better as long as it's in front of me, whether it's vertical or horizontal. So we've got that one. And then it seems like with the Titan itself, the super is actually called Glacial Quake. Now, the main reason we know that is that little bit of footage that we saw where they cast it kind of running around in a fallen area. The super itself seems to be called Glacial Quake, which seems awesome. And the reason I say the melees are different is because the icon we see on the Titan during the gameplay footage is going to be different than the Hunter that you'll see later. Looks kind of like a shoulder charge icon. It's the best way I can describe it because I don't think we really see it in action. But overall, it does look very cool. Now, maybe that's related to the super and the icon will change later. But Glacial Quake as a name for a super sounds kind of fantastic. So overall, digging on the Titan Behemoth. Can't really complain too much here. Now for the Hunter, we've seen this in one other preview. We've got these ice scythes. Very cool. Let's look at the footage first because there's some major potential in here.
Let them come. This is their fate. One after another.
All right, so the Hunter is called Revenant. For one, love the name, very cool sound. Little subtext says, bring the storm. Now that literally makes so much sense now that I've actually seen the super in action. Now the super is called Silence and Squall, which is weird to actually have a super called that, but it makes so much sense. Silence comes from Stasis. You're going to basically shut people down and make them silent, because as you throw your ice pickaxes or baby scythes or whatever they're called, they look fantastic. As you throw those out, they seem to hit enemies and freeze them, whether it's kind of a blast radius of where it hits and there's this like, a radius of freezing where it lands. I don't know how many you get, if it's like 1 and then 2, seems to be something along those lines. But the squall part, I think, has so much potential. You've got what looks to be a ice tornado. It's the best way I could describe it, or a stasis tornado. I'm probably going to get ice and stasis interchanged all the time, so forgive me in advance. It's going to happen a lot, I'm sure. But as that tornado seems to move, it tracks to enemies. Now, the one where you're looking at it straight on and it tracks towards the Minotaur, you guys can see it on screen in the screenshot. It's pretty obvious what's going on. But the other footage later on, it's like the last bit of gameplay with the actual throwing the super around, and then he goes to throw the little ninja stars, which we'll talk about in a second. As that's happening in like the periphery on the right side of the screen, there's this it continues to look like that haze of the little whirlwind is happening. So I don't know if it will track to enemies, if it follows you. But if you cast your super and then there's this stasis tornado that's going around causing even more damage, like an after effect, oh, that sounds so awesome. I'm worried about facing all of these things in PvP, mind you. Don't even get me started there. But potentially still sounds very cool to take out a couple specific guys, then the tornado comes through, wipes out low-level enemies or freezes them, and you can just kind of go through there with an auto rifle, a slide, wipe everything out. Supers on all of these seem very cool. I would say the Titan I need to see a little bit more to make sure, hopefully it feels different than Arc. But all 3 supers seem legit. Very much. Hunter may have won because you have a tornado at your hands. But I guess technically the Titans have a fire tornado, so I guess I can't win all the battles. Overall, supers very cool. Now, when it comes to the class ability, I don't know how the dodge is going to work. I don't think that one's going to change. But the melee for the Hunter is this 3-sided shuriken, and we actually get to see it kind of move. And we actually get to see the stasis bubble grenade in action as well. And we get to see us on the PvP map. They throw the grenade out as they kind of tuck around a corner. Then they throw the ninja star, and we get to follow the path of ninja star. I wish I could have their camo controls. I could shoot some fun stuff, but maybe someday. But the idea is you throw the ninja star, it looks like it bounces off 2 walls, so it's not done after 2 bounces, hits an enemy in the stasis bubble, because they're slowed, locked, whatever, probably bounce, and then tracks onto the enemy. And then it's not done after the first one, which it did kill, by the way, because either the grenade or the melee or the combination killed them. It bounces to the second enemy and kills them as well. And then we also see the same thing in the footage against the Shanks. They throw one of those little shurikens, and it hits a couple things, but there's a whole bunch of Shakes coming up some stairs to throw the shuriken, and I think it hits 3 different enemies, so it might have 3 or 4 bounces that it can go with. And that one looks pretty lethal as well, because the Shanks just die. That one seems terrifying, especially in a close quarters map, bouncing that thing around corners. That one has a lot of potential to do some very cool montages I could see, just bounce that thing around corners. Or you throw a grenade, the stasis grenade on a control point. People are slowed down, jump in, throw the shuriken, bounce. You get 3 or 4 kills. That's going to be pretty cool. Got to be completely honest. Hunter is looking pretty good on this one. Nice looking abilities. So overall, very, very cool stuff here. We got the Warlock with the Ice Staff, freezing projectiles. You've got the Titan with the avalanche wave of stuff that comes forward, and the punching fist where you can run around and continue to roam. You've got the Hunter throwing these ice scythes and stasis tornadoes. That sounds absolutely badass. I'm sorry for cussing in the video because it's late enough, but it sounds so, so cool. Now, that's all the powers that I can kind of put together in a montage for you guys. So hopefully you enjoyed this last part, or this part. The last little bit I do want to cover is a couple screenshots over weapons, just because we actually do have them to look at. And the main reason is because we saw the little teaser in June. It feels way too long ago. We saw the teaser a while ago with Luke Smith showing Hawkmoon's coming back. That's been a whole debate on the podcast. That's fine. We also got to see this blue and red weapon. We finally get to see those in the hands of Guardians. Now we have what looks definitely like a rocket launcher without a question. That's the big giant one. Bottom right-hand corner looks to be a shotgun. Maybe there's an auto rifle. It looks like there's a pulse rifle and maybe the footage and maybe possibly a little sidearm. And then up here, while I'm talking about these, I'll throw a couple other screenshots of Guardians just holding these weapons. The contrast of the red and the light blue to the dark gear and then the very light icy background kind of looks like a pretty cool aesthetic. Now, hopefully they accept shaders well and you can kind of do what you want to them. But again, these legendary weapons, at least for stylistic nature, they look completely unique and I love it. I love, like this past year, you can give it crap for some things, goodness for others, but the way they've made some of these weapons look so unique, I have really enjoyed a lot. And I think this is going to continue with Beyond Light gear for some of these new weapons that we can see right here. So overall, that's basically Stasis powers and a little tease of some of the Beyond Light weapons. Stasis looks fantastic. I gotta be honest, I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on it. I don't know how we're gonna get it, if we get it from the Stranger, Eris, the Drifter, some quest out there in Europa, who knows, but as soon as we figure out more information on each of these characters, I will be posting videos. So the Warlock, as I said, is September 1st. The Titan is September 3rd, and the Hunter is September 8th, and you guys can look for videos on my channel coming about each of those classes. So if you haven't subbed to the channel, as I said, hit the sub button and the alert bell. Those videos will be coming to you. If you guys want to find me on Twitch and Twitter, it's Ebontis on both. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like below, leave comments if you've got thoughts about any of the stuff in here. If I missed anything, please let me know. I'll probably cover it in the future videos as well. But thank you all very much. Stasis looks cool. Have a good one. I'll see you soon.